Hi everyone, welcome back to The Mystic in the Woods. I'm Kate, and today we are going to be doing a brutally honest review of the Archetypes deck by Kim Krans. So this deck, of course, has been around for a little while. So my guidebook says that the copyright is 2019, I believe. Yes, so 2019. And of course, so if you've been in the Tarot and Oracle community for a while, like, you will have seen this deck floating around, right? Kim Krans did the Wild Unknown tarot, that of course is a big thing, for good reason. And I have really resisted this deck. So I finally caved and bought it a few weeks ago. And so I thought we would do a review. Now, my story with this deck, right, is of course, like, I've seen it around everywhere. Everyone used, like I've seen it around, okay? It's a popular deck. And over the last year, one of the mentors I've been working with very closely uses this deck regularly. So she would pull cards from this. For me and everyone else, it was a small group mentoring program. And she would pull cards from this deck. At the end of each session, she would pull them for us individually, pull them for us collectively, etc., right? It's like one of her main decks. And this deck was so accurate and so spot on, and always giving everybody in this small group exactly what they needed to know every time it was pulled, that it finally started to kind of maybe grow on me, right? So I don't love round decks, or I've never liked the idea of a round deck. Okay, so this is my first round deck. And I'm not huge on the artwork, which is why I hadn't purchased it until now. But over the course of almost a year working with this mentor, and she used this deck so much, I finally started to chip away at me. I know Racine finally talked about it over on her channel, and I thought, you know what? Fine, I'm just gonna give it a try. I've had really good experiences with it. We're gonna give it a try. So I'm not going to go into, like, you know, what the card stock is, etc. You can look all that stuff up on Google. But I am going to start with the packaging. Now, I didn't want to buy this deck, and I didn't want to like it, because I always have hated the idea of round decks. There's just something about it I don't like. Plus, I don't like the backing, and the artwork just doesn't really do it for me. Like, it never has, okay? So that's why I put off buying this deck so much. Now, when I first got it, my first annoyance with this deck is the amount of packaging. Okay, so of course it was wrapped in plastic. That's very standard. But here's the thing, okay? I'm trying to be, like, a lot more intentional about how I spend money, companies I'm supporting, low waste. I'm trying to be more intentional with stuff. And this is one of those decks, and don't get me wrong, like, I love a good deck experience, like a luxury deck opening experience, okay? But this deck came in plastic, and then it has this sleeve, and then it has the box, which of course is a good quality box, okay? And then it has another box to hold the round cards. And you guys, it just feels like this is a lot of packaging for what is ultimately one deck and one book. And I do understand that it needed to be like, it's a round deck, and like, I love a good deck box, like a luxury deck experience. Like, I also have the Love of Eden Oracle that I finally caved and purchased recently. And this also has, like, a big box, and you open it and there's, like, the extra padding, but it doesn't have a sleeve, and it doesn't have a second box, and yes, it had, like, a reusable green bag, which I'm actually using for guidebook storage in my basket, like, right there where I do my daily draws, but that's reusable. So anyway, okay, so my very first experience opening the box was like, why do we have so much packaging? Okay, so that's my annoyance with that. Now, secondly, I don't love the idea of a round deck, and here's where the hate to love it things comes in, okay? I hate the idea of a round deck. I don't like that it's hard to riffle shuffle. I don't like that, like, the cards, there's no, like, obvious I don't like the idea. I love how the round deck feels in my hands when I'm working with it, and when I'm holding, like, I love how the deck feels in my hands. I hate that I love the round deck. Okay, so there's one of my little hate to love it things. Now, here's another thing that I don't like about this deck. Here's the backings. I understand this backing. I understand the diamond it isn't pixelated. Like when you look closely, it is actually a pattern. But from a little ways back, like every time I pick up the deck, it looks like a pixelated, like a poorly pixelated diamond. I don't like the backing. I understand the backing. I understand the multiple facets of a diamond. I understand it. I don't like it. Okay? I just don't. And the deck, the artwork is beautiful. And as I get to use the deck and read the card descriptions, I do understand the artwork. It's just subjectively not my favorite artwork, okay? So art is very subjective. So just because I don't love it doesn't mean you don't, and it doesn't make it bad artwork. Like, this is not because I think Kim Kranz is a bad artist or anything like that. I just don't particularly love this deck artwork, okay? Now, having said all that, getting past the fact that I actually do enjoy the round deck, that the packaging is a little too much, but I will figure out how to reuse the box and things, and the fact that I don't love the backing, which often makes it impossible for me to work with a deck. You guys, this deck is so powerful and so accurate. It is quickly climbing the ranks of my favorite decks in my entire collection. Not just mass market decks, not just Oracle decks. It is quickly becoming a deck that I cannot imagine not having access to, both in my personal practice and in my work as a shadow work facilitator, as a card reader, as somebody who holds healing space for others. This is what I mean about like the round decks. Like, I don't know which, I think on this card it's probably you're not supposed to know which way is up, but like, so even though there's all this stuff about it that I don't like, and that I purchased this deck with almost this like, I'm gonna give it a try, but I don't think I'm gonna like it, and I'll end up gifting it. This is an amazing deck. It is really, really powerful for personal work, for where you are on your journey, for what archetype you're working with at any time. And the guidebook is really, really solid. So if you don't know a lot about archetypes, for example, this gives you a really good intro into the archetypes themselves. So let's see. You get a good amount of information about archetypes, about how the deck is set up, all that stuff. You get some really good spreads and how to use the cards, and then you get a full page for each one. Now, this doesn't look like a lot, but you don't need a lot because this message is so spot on all of the time. Now, as I was looking through the guidebook, I remembered the other thing that I really actually don't like about this deck is I don't like Roman numerals on decks, especially in a deck this large. So this deck is 78 cards. Yeah, 78 cards, I believe. So this is quite a large Oracle deck, which I really like because it makes it very versatile and there's lots of stuff packed into it. But Roman numerals are hard for me to read. And so what I end up using instead is a table of contents, which is divided based on how she has the cards divided up, and then based on the number of the card. So it's not alphabetical, it's not anything like that. So it takes me a minute to be able to find each card in the guidebook, and I don't really love that. But the guidebook is spot on. So it has this main message here. It has, when light, when dark, how to go deeper. So there'll be like a recommendation of something you can read or something. There's like other little tidbits on the sides. This guidebook is gold. It is absolute gold. This deck, I can't even think of anything you couldn't use this deck for, especially with a little bit of creativity. So I've been currently using it for my own shadow work. I've been using it as I have stepped onto some new paths in my personal practice. I have not read for anybody else with it yet, but I do know I will be in the very near future bringing this into client readings as well and client sessions. So if you're on the fence about this deck, because it is a mass market deck and it is, the price is fairly accessible, if you're on the fence and you are at all interested in working with archetypes, if you like the artwork, I would say go for it, honestly, even if there are things about it you don't like. But the archetypes that were chosen, the way they were written about, this is a very, very powerful deck that I really think you can use in a very versatile way. I think there are lots and lots of directions and routes you can take this deck. I think I'm showing you guys some of the same cards I've already showed you. Let's open this up. Here we go. So here's like the sword, the orphan, the dead end. Now, if you are somebody who really, like for me, for example, the venom, some of these keywords, like yes, based on the keyword and the image, I do have somewhere to go. However, you're going to really want to use the guidebook. So here's this one is Gnosis. So I do think that you're going to want to use the guidebook with this deck. This is the Father, the Temple. But I have been pairing it with lots of decks. I don't have specific deck pair recommendations at this time. This is kind of a preliminary review, because I've only had the deck for a few weeks, but I have used it almost every day for the last few weeks for a variety of draws, for a variety of topics. And against my will, I am falling very deeply in love with this deck, and it is very quickly climbing the ranks of my top decks that I absolutely would not want to be without. It brings a very specific, special type of medicine to a reading that absolutely nothing else in my collection does. So that is all I have to say today about this deck. If you have any questions or anything, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Bye.